Hello YouTube, I'm Tallman Brad, and today I'm going to show you how to make a basic rover lift. You might have seen this at the end of the adjustable height connector video, but I didn't explain how to build it. This build will get your rover high enough in the air safely so that you can replace the wheels, do some repairs or add features underneath the vehicle, and it has a nice role-playing angle to it. Plus, there are some useful things to learn, like how to connect small grid blocks to large grids, setting up button panels, and if you watch the whole video, you'll see how to use some settings in the sensors that you might not be aware of that will add some automation to this system. Roll the intro. This is a tutorial request video, and if you'd like to request your own tutorial video, just let me know in the comments below. And a big thank you to everyone that subscribed, getting me to just over 300 subscribers. Remember to keep liking the videos if you find them useful or just entertaining. So let's set up our hotbar first. We need the standard block, a rotor, a piston, a landing gear, a button panel, and I'm going to use the group of sloped 2x1x1 blocks, but this is optional. Now that's set up, let's place a rotor down. Now it's just a normal rotor, and this is going to be roughly the center of where the lift is going to be, because it's all going to happen out from this rotor. Now you could sink this down, obviously I'm in creative mode here, hence being able to do that. You could sink this down in here if you wanted to, if you didn't want your ramp to be as high, but just for clarity so you can see exactly what I'm doing, I'm just going to put it straight on top of there. Now it doesn't matter which way around this is because we're not going to be using it as a rotor. This is how we'll connect small grid blocks to a large grid base. It'll be much quicker to do this next step with the Build Vision mod installed, but let's assume that you haven't, so I'm just going to place a control panel to do the next stage. In the control panel, I'm going to find the rotor, then I want to detach the head. And then we can see it's dropped down. I'm just going to quickly grind that off. And back in the control panel, I'll go back to the rotor, and then I'm going to say to add a small head. And if we have a look, you can see a tiny little one there, and we need to weld it up. Now from that small head, we can add small grid blocks. See the large grid block there? If I go over the top of this one, goes to a small grid. And that's the very quick way of adding small grid to a large grid. And it also means that these small grid blocks will be getting power from the large grid power supply. Okay, well, we don't want those blocks there. You can use those blocks if you want, but what I'm going to do is just place straight away a piston on top there. Ooh, if I can line it up. There we go. And on top of the piston, I'm going to put a landing gear just there. I want it that way around, just like that. So from here, I'm just going to build up the ramps around the side that we're going to drive the vehicle on, so the vehicle parks above the height of that. And this is where you could see how sinking that rotor into the platform, into the blocks below, would make this a little bit easier for you. So I'll just pop some blocks around. Now it's still sticking up a bit high, so this is where I'm going to use the 2x1x1s. So that's this selection of blocks. But I want that one there. I just want to raise it up a little bit. And for this little lip here, I'm just going to use a variant on the block I've just been using. It's this one here. That'll just help us get the vehicle up the ramps. So you can see from the height that I've got it here, it's just sticking up from the top there. So if you wanted to, you could have used some blocks in here. You could have put a couple of small grid blocks in there just to raise that up a little bit higher than a full one of those. Whatever you like, just have a play. So now I've got the ramp system set up there. I'm just going to pop a block in here. Obviously you could put this wherever you want, but I'm just going to put it here just so we can see this working while I'm pressing the buttons. So before we go any further, we should lock that rotor to stop these things from turning. Obviously if you want them to turn, that could be a feature. You could have one of these buttons set to rotate your car once it's up in the air. Maybe that's useful to you, but I don't want to do that. So in the control panel, I'm going back into the rotor, and then I'm going to tell it, there you go, rotor lock. That'll just stop it from accidentally turning when I don't want it to. So let's assign these buttons to what I want them to do. First button, I want it to raise and lower the piston. So if I tap on that, it's asking what I want to do because I haven't set it up yet. Now with this button, I want it to operate the piston. And I want it to reverse whatever direction it's going in. At the minute, it's in retraction mode. It's trying to pull itself smaller. So if I tell it that I want to reverse, it will extend it if it's retracted, and it will retract it if it's extended. So there's only one button. We don't need an up and a down. So I'm sure you're aware that landing gear is by default set to auto lock when it touches something. So when that piston rises, it's going to hit the bottom of the rover, the landing gear will lock and it'll stay locked. But when it comes back down, I want it to unlock. So I'm going to set up a button to do the unlocking. So let's have a look at a different way of going in and setting up that button. So in the control panel, if we go to the button panel, I'm going to tell it that I want button 2 to do something. So I'll select button 2 and set up an action. And then we're back to that same view as if I just clicked on that button there. So button 2 is going to affect the landing gear, but what's it going to do with the landing gear? It's just going to unlock it. I'm leaving the landing gear set to automatically lock, but I'm going to manually unlock it when I want to. So in theory now, I should be able to just drive this car up the ramps and we'll get roughly in the right place. I'm going to just have a look outside with the... Yeah, oh, that's bang on, perfect. Just use V to have a look outside, and you might want to put some stops of some sort on the end here, but that's up to you. Alright, let's test this out. So button number 1, piston reverse. Let's see what happens. Hit F, off it goes, and you can see the landing gear locked, and it's raised the rover in the air, and it's not going anywhere. So this has raised it up enough so that I could grind off the suspension here and replace the wheels with a different type or whatever I want to do. Or I can get on with some work underneath. If you can't quite get under the wheel, just crouch. And there we are under the wheel. And we can continue working. So now we're finished with the car on the ramp. We want to get it back down. Now note what happens here. What I'll do the first time is I'll lower it, but I'll not unlock the landing gear. And let's just see what happens. So hit reverse. It's pulling it back down. The landing gear is still attached. So the piston retracted all the way. And it tried to pull the rover through the ground. So that's no good. I can just hit unlock now and it's let go there. You can see it's raised back up. Let's try it again. If I go back up and we finished our work, we retracted. What I can do is I can just tap 2 and it unlocks it in time. But that's a bit fiddly. How about we automate it? So that system works, but I've got to stand and unlock that as it gets to the right height to stop it trying to pull it through the ground. It's not doing any damage to it, but it just doesn't seem quite right. So what I'm going to do now is add a sensor that will detect when the rover is down low enough, and then it will unlock that landing gear for me. So in the G menu, I'm going to have a look for sensor. Put that in there, number 9, and I'm going to place it there. Make sure it's the right way around to make it easier on yourself. So if you haven't seen the sensors video that I did already, then let me just show you the right way up for the sensor is like that. So it's like a sort of a smiley face or a smiley cyclops with a mouth at the bottom and the one eye at the top. Rotate it the right way. I need to configure the sensor now to only detect when this vehicle comes into range. So if I just crouch here and have a look, there we go, I'm accessing it there, and if I hit F, we can get into the settings. But no matter what I change in here, I'm not going to be able to see what it's actually doing unless I switch on this feature. And let me show you. If you go to the info panel and go to show sensors field range, select that box. Now if I have a look around at my base, you can see those ghost blocks there. That's the area that the sensors are set to detect something in. So if I want to see that box for this sensor, I'm going to need to tell the sensor that it's going to show that information on the hood. So if I go back into the control panel and go to the sensor, there's the option here for show on hood. If I turn that on, and we just have a look at what we've got, we should see, there we go. There's a box. So that's the area that the sensor's working in, but it's too big, so I want to change the size of it. So it's just affected by the rover. Let's have another look at this sensor and I'll just explain the different directions where the sensor area works. So assume that is a face and it's looking out that way. That would be looking forwards. Going that way is looking backwards. and then we've got the top, bottom, and then obviously the left is going that way and the right is going that way, as it's actually facing that way. So in the control panel and the sensor, we can see the left extent set to 5 meters. I'm just going to reduce that to 1 by doing control and clicking on the slider, hit 1, then enter. Same with the right, 1, enter. The bottom extent, I don't need it to detect out of the bottom, so we'll just set that to the lowest value, and it's 0.1. The top extent, I only need it to just touch the vehicle. You can't see the edge of it there. We'll see when it comes down. So the top extent, if I just start bringing that down, there we go. So now we've got the area set up that the sensor is going to work in. We need to tell the sensor what it's going to do when it's triggered. Back in the control panel, if you select the sensor and scroll down, you can see the option, there we go, detect small ships. Now that's what I want it to do. I want it to detect a small ship, or in other words, the rover. But what I don't want it to do is to detect me when I walk into that area to work on the rover, because that means that it will unlock the landing gear and the rover might fall off and explode, make a mess. So you simply turn off the detect players. Okay, so now let's tell the sensor what it's going to do when it's triggered. We go to Setup Actions. I want it to trigger the landing gear and I want it to unlock it. Let's go back again, and we'll test it out. So hit F on that one. See the landing gear is locked. It's raised the rover up. Let's have a walk over. And the sensor hasn't triggered to unlock the landing gear when I step into its area. And now when we reverse the piston, it should detect the rover and unlock the landing gear. And there you go. Now if you wanted to unlock sooner or later, you just change the height of your sensor field area. Okay, let's get rid of these boxes by going back into the control panel, into info, and then the show sensors field range. Turn that back off, and there we go. We can see all of our boxes have disappeared and we're ready for action, and we don't need to use button number 2 now. If you found the video useful, or if you've enjoyed it, then please leave a like. If you're not subscribed, then think about subscribing. I do plenty of this sort of thing. There's quite an extensive back catalogue of other tutorials you can have a look at if you visit my page now. And if there's something you're stuck with in space engineers and you'd like to see me do a tutorial on it, then let me know in the comments. I don't bite. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Bye bye.